So welcome to the webinar, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's session on short-term lodging tax tips for stress-free compliance. My name is Mary Rada. I'm the marketing manager at Ximplifi, and we are very grateful to be joined today by our friends at Avalara MyLodgeTax to present on this topic. Just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. So we have two poll questions, like I just mentioned. If you haven't already, please take a second to answer those. We will also have time at the end for a Q&A session, but if you have a question now, we don't want you to lose it. So use that Q&A button, which I see people have already used. Oh, sorry about that. I will make sure to activate the poll in just a second. So whenever you get a question, go ahead and submit it to that Q&A and we'll answer it at the end of the presentation. The purpose of today's webinar is to shed some light on the confusing and challenging aspects of short-term rental taxes, which go by many aliases. And we will reveal some of the industry secrets about how professional property management companies are managing these compliance issues at scale. We have a lot to cover, so to kick us off, I will let our hosts introduce ourselves, starting with Justin.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Mari and Jesse, for having us today and help spread the message about forming a lodging tax strategy. I'm a senior sales and onboarding specialist at Avalara MyLodgeTax, and I've been with the organization for a little over 6 years. One thing I love about MyLodgeTax is the perspective. I think we're all stakeholders in some way, obviously, in the short-term rental industry. And so looking at it from a technical or lodging tax compliance perspective is very interesting and a really great way to help other hosts, property managers, basically any other stakeholder apply these programs, these processes to your own business strategy.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Justin. And my name is Jesse. I'm the founder of Ximplifi. I am and CEO. I spent about 10 years in public accounting, mostly with PricewaterhouseCoopers, and then joined a short-term real estate investment firm or business in Denver, Colorado. So that's where I got started in this industry myself. Spent a couple of years there, helping them transform their finance function, utilizing or leveraging technology. And through that experience, saw an opportunity to serve this industry specifically, both with outsourced accounting services as well as building technology to make their lives easier. So that's what we do at Ximplifi. And when it comes to sales tax compliance, it is a complex and challenging topic that we work very closely with Avalara and MyLodgeTax to serve our clients. And so real excited to talk about this topic with Justin today.
Awesome. Well, thank you both. It's great to have you on the call. And just a quick look at our agenda. First, we'll give some quick background on who Avalara and Ximplifi are and how they're changing the short-term rental industry. Then we'll dive right in and pull back the curtain on just why lodging tax is such a complicated issue for short-term rental managers. And then to answer that question, we'll walk you through the 5 easy-to-follow steps to keeping your properties compliant, and also discuss some of the technologies that you can use to simplify and speed up that process. And then finally, we will wrap it up with about 15 minutes left for Q&A. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Justin to get us started.
Awesome. Thank you, Mari. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce Avalara MyLodgeTax, kind of who we are, what we do, what our purpose is, and truly the value that we bring to the short-term rental industry. And so I like to bring in some figures that really help highlight the efficiency and scalability of the MyLodgeTax program. Mike, can you go to the next slide for me, please? Fabulous. So we've MyLodgeTax annually, and I think these numbers are from 2021 and have grown even more than we see today. But still impressive nonetheless, the volume of customers. MyLodgeTax services over 11,000 individual customers, property owners, property managers. And 410,000. I think that's upward around 500,000 lodging tax and sales tax returns. So just the scalability and the ability of my lodge tax to support really a short-term rental operator of any size with the registration and the ongoing tax reporting of their short-term rental business. And that really again highlights the 29,000, close to 30,000 licenses or registrations that we're applying for with our hosts, property managers. So I'd love to bring those figures and just kind of show you what the scale is and where we continue to grow and service our partners. The way we do it is really taking the consistencies and patterns within the short-term compliance space and breaking that down for hosts and property managers. Everything from the initial research and approaching the various state or local jurisdictions to determine the tax and registration requirements for short-term rental operators, and then applying those processes to your really your entire business strategy needs to be incorporating good reporting, good record keeping, bookkeeping. Those are things that we're really excited to kick off with our relationship with Ximplifi. And MyLodgeTax is really a platform that just helps manage that entire process. So just helping formulate that strategy for anybody that needs some level of assistance to actually providing that program and platform to execute those functions.
Great, and thanks. I'll talk a bit about Ximplifi. Can jump to the next screen here. Ximplifi, effectively, as I talked about earlier, we're a technology-enabled accounting firm. We built VR platform, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but it's an accounting plugin for your property management system. So we plug into multiple property management systems and then integrate and sync data from that PMS, as well as from merchant processors like Stripe, or even some data directly from Airbnb into the accounting platform to facilitate both trust accounting and operational accounting. And then in addition to that, we have a team of north of 40 different accounting professionals that provide accounting services. So not only do we plug in and automate a lot of the process, at the same time, we also have a team of experts that can assist in doing all functions of accounting, full service, from entering and paying bills to reconciling cash received from your different channels, to producing owner statements and paying out your owners, and producing your monthly operating financial statements. So, currently we serve about north of 130, and we're basically approaching 150 different property management clients and north of 7,000 properties that use listings that are using in some way VR platform, and those are growing by every single day. So our mission is to help small businesses in this industry, because it's such a hard business of serving clients and guests that are pulling you each way, and the accounting can be complex, and a lot of folks end up struggling with finding solutions. And so that's what we do every day, is find solutions and help our clients reach their financial goals in this business. Speaking a bit more about VR platform, as I talked about earlier, we integrate with multiple property management systems. So we essentially plug in to your PMS, and then depending on what accounting system you want to use, whether that's QuickBooks Online, whether that's Xero, or a more robust platform called Sage Intacct. Actually, one of our clients is on today that uses Sage Intacct, and we've integrated their PMS with Sage Intacct to, again, automate having real-time data flow between your PMS and the accounting software. So helping our clients have real-time insight into the performance of their business, automating that owner statement cycle, and again, helping them achieve greater financial success in their business. And I'll throw it over to you, Justin, to talk about what we need to do when it comes to tax compliance.
Yeah, thanks, Jesse. It's really valuable with what Ximplifi brings. I've seen every single company in every industry struggles with their finances, and having a resource like that is extremely valuable. And so what I'm going to do now is really introduce lodging tax and how to approach or format strategy, kind of taking some high level details. So go ahead, Marian. First, we're going to define what lodging tax is, because we continue to use that term. And so it's very important to call out that lodging tax is just simply a general term. This is referring to the indirect business tax that is applied to the transaction of a short-term rental or a short-term lodging transaction. And so the actual terminology used by a state or local jurisdiction is going to vary. And so it's important that we pay attention to the actual terms used by those jurisdictions in order to potentially avoid any misinformation. So here next, we're going to really take an example of a property. I love bringing in an example from a property in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, because this really highlights all the various levels of complexities that we want to address when we're forming our compliance strategy. So this is merely what we call the initial research stage. When we acquire a new property, we want to make sure we understand where that property is located within city limits, unincorporated area of a county. And so on the left side, there's that map with the red shaded area indicating the city limits of Myrtle Beach. We're going to pretend like our property is within that red shaded area. On the right-hand side, I brought a table that shows the total lodging tax rate. This is the amount that we apply to the guest's transaction, and the breakdown of that lodging tax rate. The lodging tax rate is going to be comprised of state and local subtaxes. And these taxes are remitted directly to the jurisdictions that enact them. So when we approach our research, we want to make sure we're segmenting each individual jurisdiction and reaching out to those separately. So the state is going to provide you only with the tax information that's related to the state. The county only going to provide you information related to the county, and the city, the same approach. So make sure we're inquiring to each level of jurisdiction where that property resides. And we know that we're reaching out to the correct jurisdictions and putting that information together to get the full kind of lodging tax strategy that we're going to need to action. I often like to talk about the impacts and what benefits we all kind of as an industry and communities receive from paying our lodging taxes and maintaining our compliance with the jurisdictions where properties are located. And I like to also point out, not necessarily listed here, but a standard lodging tax rate is really anywhere between, I like to call it 9 to 15%. So we have like general sales tax rates from 4 to 6 or 8%, lodging tax 9 to 15%. So quite a bit larger than the actual sales tax rates that maybe other industries are charging. And that's because we often see a combination of those state and local taxes. That Myrtle Beach example sits right there at 13%. Lodging taxes are distributed directly to the state and local jurisdictions that enact them. So these funds are being injected straight into the towns and the counties where our properties are located. High tax rates, 7% lodging taxes, things like that. So there's a lot of community services that are being funded by the lodging and tourism taxes that our industry brings. I think that's probably not a new concept, but we really see it in action when we work with our clients. We certainly can't negate the fact that lodging taxes is legislation. It is a law. We can't, if we fail to set up the appropriate registrations or maintain those accounts, we can get in trouble, penalties, pull our license. So we need to make sure we're on top of all of these processes, the registration and the ongoing tax compliance. And finally, support. Jurisdictions generally support the short-term rental industry the more owners and property managers are maintaining their registrations and tax accounts. So continue to stay on top of it. And I think we all, as an industry, myself included, we all face very similar headwinds from neighbors, everything. We know what this is all about. The more we maintain good standing with our state and local jurisdictions, the more they really are in favor of the short-term lodging industry. Go ahead, Mari. And so now we're going to go ahead and jump into the 5 steps to lodging tax compliance, really just the initial approach of researching and segmenting the state and local jurisdictions, trying to get a picture of what registrations and ongoing tax requirements we're supposed to maintain as a property manager. And so that really just is that first step. Again, breaking down any state taxes. We're looking for state tax and registration information, county tax and registration information, and city tax or registration information. So it's really important to segment those jurisdictional levels, figure out how to contact each one of those controllers, and then receive the applications or tax accounts that are needed in order to operate a short-term rental. The second step is then doing the applications and maintaining those registrations. So when we're doing that initial research, we're looking for those 2 items, tax and registration things, if you will. And so when we apply for the various registrations, there's going to be lots of nuances within that process as well. Different jurisdictions require different things. They have licenses and registrations that function differently. The way they process applications, license renewals is all different. And so we need to make sure we're identifying the appropriate applications, whether those licenses or registrations we're setting up have tax or renewal, some sort of ongoing function or maintaining good standing. And if we have to link the individual units or property locations or link other owners' accounts to our collective or umbrella accounts, so the different levels if we're working or representing owners. So what are the forms of registration that we need to set up, and how do we maintain those registrations on an ongoing basis? The third step, I'm going to hand it over to Jesse, because this is definitely a space where Ximplifi thrives in their value with owners and property managers.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. And I think one of the things that I'd like to point out is one of the reasons that we've, especially supporting our clients that often work in so many different jurisdictions, and even within one jurisdiction, you can, one part of town's in a special district that has specific taxes that, a couple blocks down the road doesn't. The biggest reason why we've looked to partner with Avalara MyLodgeTax is because of the cumbersome nature of licensing and determining, hey, what exact taxes is each of your properties subject to, especially when we talk about working, again, in multiple jurisdictions and countrywide. So, those steps 1 and 2 are so key to getting number 3 right, which is collecting those lodging taxes from your guests. The first piece of this puzzle, right, is understanding, hey, what is actually taxable in my jurisdiction? So, you talked a bit about that in the research, but typically it's all those mandatory fees, rent, cleaning, any resort fees, or additional damage waiver fees that are required fees, or that's not the definition in all jurisdictions, but for the wouldn't you say, Justin, probably like 99% of jurisdictions, that's how they define it. Hey, if you have a mandatory fee, it should be subject to that lodging tax. And so then the second piece of that puzzle is, okay, well, how do I set up whatever my reservation platform is, whether I'm using my property management system and setting my taxes up correctly through that platform to collect taxes, and not only setting those up, those different, I'll call them tax groups by jurisdiction, but then you also have to take into consideration my different channels. So for example, Airbnb, typically you're never the merchant of record. And so for many jurisdictions, Airbnb is collecting and remitting taxes on your behalf. However, as with everything, there's always the exceptions where there's certain local jurisdictions where Airbnb isn't collecting those taxes and remitting on your behalf. So you could have, and I think if we jump to the next screen, we actually have this example where Airbnb is remitting, those top 5 taxes, but they're only remitting, but you have to remit the 6 and 7 in that of all of those different taxes. And so now understanding, hey, I've got to go into Airbnb and make sure that Airbnb is set up to, they call it TOT, or pass-through taxes, that they're going to pass through to you, and then you go ahead and remit those. So again, typically your property management system isn't going to control Airbnb, and so there's special settings within Airbnb to make sure that you are collecting and having the correct taxes passed through to you. But then, when we look at your other channels, whether they're direct or booking.com or VRBO, assuming you're the merchant of record. So merchant of record means, hey, you're running those payments either on Stripe or through some sort of merchant processor. You're running the credit card and you're collecting that money. So it's those, for those stays, you actually are responsible for all 13%, collecting the 13% and then remitting those taxes to each of those different jurisdictions. And so really, if we want to jump back to the other screen real quick, it's, hey, how am I setting up my property management system combined with my channels to make sure that I have the right things marked as taxable and I have the right tax percentages set up for each one of my properties. So then I'm actually making sure that, hey, I'm collecting the right amount of taxes. And then finally, the other piece of that puzzle is, okay, well, now I need to determine what is my taxable income by channel and by property in order to remit those taxes. And where we typically step in is helping our clients make sure that those settings are right in all the right places. And then we're also reconciling, okay, hey, what taxes did I collect versus what taxes are owed based on what we call calculated tax. So we call it reconciling calculated taxes, which is my taxable income multiplied by my tax rate, versus the taxes that I actually collected from our guests. And so, I can't, unfortunately, I've seen way too often where our clients that come to us and they have not been collecting the right amount of taxes, but they've actually been remitting the right amount of taxes, and so they find themselves in a bit of a hard spot because they've been remitting a bunch of tax and they didn't realize it, that they never collected, and so effectively they've got cash that was going out the door that they never had. So a lot of issues there to identify, and obviously you want to make sure that you identify them as early as possible, ideally right as you're getting set up. So but that's how we really help our clients walk through the collection process. And I'll throw it back to you to talk a little bit more about filing.
Thanks, Jesse. Huge call out. And I think it's something we're going to go into a little more, but we certainly always welcome conversations and talking about marketplaces like Airbnb and Verbo that have tax remittance programs. I mean, you just hear it, it makes it that much more complex to maintain your own business tax accounts and then file your revenues and your tax returns accommodating the Airbnb remittance programs. What do you have to pay? What do you not have to pay? How do you track that? Those are all super important things. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of times I see people double paying or just not paying anything and getting themselves into really hot water. And so that's really where we're going to go into. Step 4 is physically filing and submitting the tax documents that we owe to the state and local jurisdictions in order to keep those registrations up to date. And so the first call out is to understand the filing frequencies associated with each of your business tax accounts. When you set up a state or local occupancy or lodging sales tax account, whatever it's called, that's that obligation to submit monthly or quarterly tax returns is assigned to that license. So very important that you understand the start dates that you're going to establish for the business and the frequency, how often we need to file our tax returns. Of course, due dates. The tax return has a due date when it needs to be submitted. So what is that due date? Does that vary between jurisdictions that we're working with? Very common to see jurisdictions mix those due dates and filing frequencies. A great example is kind of picking on the Carolinas today, North Carolina, where a lot of those returns are due quarterly. Maybe the locals are due monthly. So pay attention to those frequencies and due dates. Common due dates are the 20th or last day of the month, but lots of variance there as well. Some returns due as early as the 10th or the 15th, kind of due dates scattered around all the way until that last day of the month. So jurisdictions are really gonna make it difficult by just setting different due dates. They don't necessarily communicate with each other or coordinate those sort of things. It's our jobs to pay attention.
Hey, Justin, one thing I was going to jump in. I can't remember if I heard you talk about this or not, but just the fact that once you set up that license, once you set up that, all of your different sales tax licenses and short-term rental licenses necessary, that they're expecting a return. And so a lot of times I see folks either, they get that license and maybe the home doesn't come online. They don't have any income for a couple of months, but they're not filing $0 returns because, even if they haven't collected anything, hey, they're expecting that. Or, everybody doesn't quite have their ducks in a row. They might get their licenses, but they're not collecting taxes and they don't think they have to, because they haven't collected, that they don't have to file. Pointing that out, that is an area that I've seen folks get into trouble because of that. They'll have penalties and interest, which you're about to talk about, because they didn't file early on after they get their license.
Yeah, exactly. It's probably one of the most common but easiest things to be aware of and fix. Once you set up the tax accounts and licenses for your short-term rental property or your property management business, those jurisdictions are then expecting timely returns regardless of the revenue amount collected. So you still have to file your tax returns claiming revenue collected, but you might not owe a tax payment for whatever reason, but you need to submit that document or else that's going to the consequence is really what we're going to talk about next. And so to file your returns, we're going to just really focus on how do we get that done. A lot of these jurisdictions are turning toward an online filing program. I think some of us are managing this on our own already. The Taxpayer Access Point, MuniRevs. There are some other different organizations or new programs that have been enacted over the past probably 5-10 years. I've seen in the short-term rental industry accepting these lodging tax payments. So how do we submit our lodging taxes each month? Are we using an online portal with a username and password? Are we just sending in a check with a paper return? These are things that we need to understand to make those due dates and send in our returns accurately. Familiarizing ourselves, those online portals be a little tricky, but you can work with them too. It's important to know how to navigate those programs. And then when you're listing on a marketplace, I like to just really highlight this at the very end of our filing, because we understand how to file. Now we apply that marketplace factor to our revenue reporting. Is any marketplace that we're using, Airbnb or otherwise, collecting and remitting a portion of the lodging tax obligation? And if so, how do we claim this revenue in order to not make a tax payment on the revenue that was already paid by that marketplace? So pay attention to those jurisdictions. Get a lot of questions about how to track that. And Airbnb, Vrbo, they have published articles and blogs where they really highlight and outline the various jurisdictions that they're collecting and remitting. Being somebody who's worked with that for years, very difficult to kind of interpret. You can go ahead, Mari, because now we're going to step into that fifth and final step of managing your compliance strategy. And that's really being on the lookout for notices or correspondence that we might receive from the jurisdictions. We're continuously filing monthly or quarterly tax returns and paying them lots of money. So it's really not uncommon for them to communicate back to us. This is a form of communication to us with those state and local jurisdictions. And so some things that we want to look out for if we receive some form of notice that a property or a tax account or license that we hold, who is this notice coming from? The state, the county, city, what's jurisdiction? That way we know who to reach back out to. Is there a case number, license number, or some form of identifying factor? That way we can just communicate with that agent, whoever's helping us resolve that notice. They can pull up that case and then really provide guidance to help us promptly remove that delinquency. There's such a vast variety of reasons why a jurisdiction is going to reach out to you. Like a notice of audit or a license renewal. Perhaps you've filled out a tax return. They believe you filled out a tax return inaccurately. So be on the lookout, reach out promptly, find that identifying factor, know who sent it to you. It's just be on the lookout. If we're using those online filing programs or you've opted out of receiving paper notices, be aware on those online filing portals, because that's where they're going to communicate with you. Check that message centers. So many times we get licenses and we take over these tax accounts and there's 100 notices in there. The jurisdiction is just trying to communicate something with you to bring that account into good standing. So make sure we know how to use those programs. They're fairly dynamic. And the best way to resolve that is to meet them where they're at and communicate through that filing portal.
Hey, Justin, real quick, we did have a question come through and I figured it's a fairly easy one. So I thought I'd answer it real quickly on the fly here. So someone asked, do we have to remit lodging tax on non-mandatory fees, for example, pool heating, non-service animal pet fees, etc.? Typically that answer is no. That's not true for all jurisdictions, so I'll just throw out that warning. But in my experience, it's really those mandatory fees that are subject to lodging and occupancy tax, not ad hoc fees for different items that they're adding on because they're going to be using a pool or want to turn on the pool heater, etc. So anyway, I'd say almost always you don't have to remit lodging tax on the non-mandatory fees.
That's right. You certainly want to check with your jurisdiction if you're going to offer those sorts of ancillary options as well. let's bounce into how Ximplifi can help.
Yeah. Thanks. Well, I talked a bit about this earlier, but typically the place where we come in to help is just getting your overall books in order. So every reservation becomes an invoice with our accounting plugin. Each payment is recorded and applied against that invoice, making sure that, hey, for every charge that's coming from your different channels or from your property management system, those are accounted for and itemized. So what's rent is recorded as rent, what's cleaning fees is recorded cleaning fees, pet fees, sales taxes, etc. Again, and that's using our integration platform and bringing that data over into your accounting system's choice, reconciling, plugging into Stripe or Airbnb or other merchant processors and payout platforms to reconcile the payments that are being recorded, perhaps in your property management system. Typically in your property management system, we're then reconciling that to actual cash received from those merchant processors and deposited into your bank. So really making sure we have a tight grip on the revenue that you're earning by channel, by property, and then reconciling that to the cash that you have. And again, finally, also our platform has its own owner statement portal that all the data within QuickBooks or Sage Intacct or Xero is then used. So that reconciled data is then used to produce and pay out your owners in a very seamless process. So that's really where we help is helping folks get their QuickBooks or whatever accounting software they're using set up correctly and integrated with our via our platform. And then, as I talked about earlier, hey, a lot of folks, even when things are largely set up for them, there's still a decent amount of understanding and expertise that's necessary to manage your accounting appropriately. And so a lot of folks just say, hey, we love having people that know exactly what's needed and are already doing this for a lot of other similar clients. And I really just want to go focus on serving my guests, growing my guest revenue, and bringing on additional properties. And so we completely take the burden away of managing accounting. Certainly there's a level of teamwork. We can't do the accounting without the inside of money that's being spent by our clients. Or different questions about different reservation payments, et cetera. But largely we become just, an extension of them that helps them have peace of mind over their financials and getting their owners paid, but then also focusing and helping our clients achieve the financial success that they're looking for in their own business. So, hey, we want to make sure owners get paid, but we also want to make sure that we help our clients grow their bottom line, and so they're paying themselves and getting the right profits or the profits that they should expect as a property manager. When it comes to working with Avalara, as I talked about earlier, we work very closely just because of the nuances and just so many different jurisdictions that we work in. We work closely. If folks want us to manage the compliance for them, we actually do that utilizing MyLodgeTax services. And I jump to the next screen. And coming, I talked, these are all the different systems that we connect in today. We're, every few months we're adding a new property management system. Those are the systems that we're working with today, and very excited when it comes to talking about, Avalara and MyLodgeTax is we've engaged to build a sales tax dashboard, essentially, that will very, easily report your various sales taxes that are due by jurisdiction and by property and by channel, all the different things that we talked about today that are necessary to understand. So not only are we going to be building this sales tax dashboard that'll help you understand, hey, what's my taxable income? What's my calculated tax due? and reconcile that to your sales tax collected, then once you're comfortable with all those sales tax or reportable taxable income, we're actually going to, through our integration with Avalara MyLodgeTax, allow you to remit and report that taxable revenue to Avalara, to completely streamline the filing and compliance process. So, and even when it comes to pulling in sales tax rates from MyLodgeTax, so that you never have to worry and go try to figure things out as you add a new property. Being able to easily pull those different tax rates based on where your property is at, pulling that right into our dashboard and facilitating the right reporting and calculating of tax dues. So anyway, we're really excited about that. We expect that that's going to be coming sometime in mid Q3, that we'll have that up and running. So that's the accounting plugin. And I don't know if we had anything else we were going to talk about. We can show here what our understatements look like, or a small example. But again, as all that revenue flows into your accounting system, we then take that data to provide you your own white label owner portal, where your owners can log in, see their current month statement, or see maybe they have multiple properties. We even can, if you have multiple owners of one property, you need to split revenue between multiple owners. We can facilitate that as well. Very customizable owner statements. So anyway, really proud of what we've built with VR platform.
Really, really exciting to begin the work and implement the technical integration to Ximplifi. There's just so many cool features and things that we can communicate, like tax rates, revenue information, being able to work with Ximplifi, a accounting resource that helps vacation rental property managers extrapolate their information by property and aggregate their revenue information by property, is really one of the critical things of managing your lodging tax compliance, filing returns, reporting earnings correctly. Yeah, go ahead, Jesse.
Yeah, we had a question come in from Lisa asking if the tax reporting reconciliation that I mentioned is functional now.
Yeah.
The sales tax dashboard that I just talked about, and that reconciliation reporting / dashboard is not functional today within VRP. That's something that we're building over the next several months. I will say that we have other means of helping our clients report and reconcile taxes collected versus calculated tax due, especially if, at least I don't know how large an operator you are, but for clients that are, typically growing 100 or more, Sage Intacct becomes a really useful tool from a reporting standpoint. So we can really produce some custom reports that ultimately, will do the same thing that we plan to do within VRP. But hopefully that answers that question. It's not quite functional now, as I just talked about.
Great, thank you, Jesse and Lisa, for that question. And so just to really summarize who we are at MyLodgeTax, we're a short-term rental platform that property managers use in order to manage their compliance. We've been in business since 2003, so just about over 20 years. I think this is our 20-year anniversary. So we've seen a lot of changes throughout the STR industry, just both the owner side, property management. There's so many changes in the industry, and really the functions of our service are just comprehensive through all 5 steps of that compliance strategy we went through. Everywhere from researching the state and local tax and registration requirements for any property that's added to MyLodgeTax, we actually generate a report and send that report out to the user in order for them to log to their files and then set up their property management systems, their marketplace channels, establishing the correct tax rate to apply to reservations. Really gives us the framework to then move into the registration setup phase, helping our users establish all of the necessary short-term rental licenses, business tax accounts, essentially helping with identify the applications, complete and submit those applications. And we do try to make that as hands-off as possible. So there could be some items where we do lean on our users for actionables and perhaps a balcony or fire inspection, things like that. So we help make you aware of the various requirements and what's needed in order to set up those licenses. Of course, the revenue reporting process we talked about, hopefully soon we can implement this technical integration to receive direct revenue information from our partners like Ximplifi, and our users will be asked to log in and report their earnings by property. So MyLodgeTax can calculate, charge tax amounts due, and then report those or distribute those tax returns to the state and local jurisdictions where they're due. And we even kind of adjust that fifth step where we're looking out for notices and address those for our clients as well. So we will get those to our office. Sometimes they're mailed or sent to the property managers directly. We work with our users very, very closely to manage the notices and any correspondence that they might receive from a jurisdiction. Yeah, that puts us right about 10 minutes left for some Q&A. You've had some great questions already. Mari, you're gonna dictate some questions to us and we'll give it our
Yeah.
best shot.
We actually got another one from Lisa. She was asking if we could go over the pricing of MyLodgeTax.
Absolutely. So that's a great place to start. We just have positioned the product. I like to break down our pricing just the way we do the compliance process. We charge an initial setup fee and then a monthly subscription fee. For Ximplifi partners, we charge a $99 setup fee per property and $20 per month per property. That's for MyLodgeTax Pro.
Thank you. Hope that answers your question.
But you have to be a Ximplifi client.
You have to be a
That's-
Ximplifi client for that special rate,
That special rate.
and that is a special rate.
It is a special rate.
How long does the registration setup process take?
That's a fantastic question. I'm getting an echo here. Now the echo is gone. Great. So the registration process will vary by jurisdiction if you're going to apply on your own. One thing we like to incorporate for all our customers, we try to standardize the process as much as possible. So we give them a 1 month by property timeline to complete that registration phase for units that you onboard. And so what I also like to call out is how to establish a start date and how MyLodgeTax continuously on a rolling basis establishes start dates for new units being onboarded. We mentioned that in the second step of our compliance process. So really the takeaway is with MyLodgeTax, it takes about 1 month to set up the licenses and tax registrations, but the start dates that you receive will be 1 month out. For example, if you were to subscribe a new property with MyLodgeTax in April, that property would receive a May start date, meaning May revenue reported in June is the first time that you would report earnings for that unit. Great question. I'd love to go over that timeline. The two key concepts in order to be successful with MyLodgeTax or any short-term rental, you manage your compliance through our program or not. knowing the timeline for steps for registration, and then that revenue reporting or tax filing process, those are going to be the critical keys to maintaining a successful compliance strategy.
Gotcha. Thanks, Justin. There was a question on that special pricing. If they are already established with Ximplify, with listing setup, does the setup fee apply for Avalara?
Yes, the setup is largely driven by the need to set up on the MyLodgeTax system, get the right licenses and confirm the right licenses are in place. So, Justin, I'm sure you can speak a little bit more to that, but yes, that setup fee when it is specific to whether or not you're currently working with us or not.
Yeah, we are so extremely excited to begin our partnership with Ximplify that we've actually discounted the setup fee. We apply that setup fee to every single property that's onboarded with Avalara MyLodgeTax, regardless of the current registration status. Really, when you add or onboard a property with MyLodgeTax, there's a significant amount of due diligence that our program takes into researching and confirming the tax and registration requirements, formulating that framework. We actually build it into your account. So you log in and you can see these things working on your account, validating any existing license information that you've already established on your own. So we take a look at anything that you've set up. We want to see it, send it over. That way we can use it and take those accounts so we can begin filing returns using what you have set up already, or apply. So whether you have, if there are any missing items or registrations, we validate what items you have set up and we help fill in those blanks. We're often helping people set up registrations completely from scratch. So we always apply that $99 setup fee, and that's discounted from our list price of $299. So, that's just a testament to how excited we are to begin this partnership with Ximplify and what we want to offer Ximplify members to begin trying our program.
Awesome. Thanks,
Lisa does have a follow-up there. The question is it possible to handle registration of permits and renewals, but partner with Avalara just for filing the returns? I believe that answer is no, but I'll let you confirm that.
Yeah, that's correct. We offer our service only as a combined service package. So we don't only offer registration services for that setup fee or the monthly filing services for the monthly fee.
Right.
We only offer that as a package together.
Right. And then I do see a question about the cost of Ximplify. We do segregate that out between the cost of our software and then the cost of our services. Typically, we're only going to support clients that are using our software and supported property management systems. The monthly subscription for VRP, our accounting plugin, starts at $125, and that's up to 10 units at $12.50 a unit. And then we have tiered volume discount pricing as the number of units that you have grow. And then from a services standpoint, our services typically start at I have my sales director on here, so I might misquote this, but we have a tiered services there as well. So what we call silver, gold, and platinum. So silver is where we're essentially just supporting our clients on a trust accounting only basis. We're just reconciling their trust account, getting their owner statements out, dealing with owner billables and making sure those get on owner statements. So that would be our silver, and then platinum is basically full service. We're doing everything from paying bills, reconciling credit cards, and also doing the trust accounting as well. So, and then gold is something in between that. But those services typically start at $1,000 a month for the silver, and then that's for up to 20 units. And then again, we price our services on a per unit basis as well. So it grows from that $1,000 per unit. I'm sorry, not $1,000 per unit, $1,000 for up to 20 units. I see we have, how many units on average does Avalara MyLodgeTax manage per management company? Well, but that's a hard one, but I don't know if you know that answer or not.
Yes, I don't know that answer. We work, but I would like to certainly speak to it. And Mari, I think we have one more slide here. I want to give all our attendees, and again, thank everybody for hanging out with us and talking lodging tax with Jesse and I, and encourage anybody who has more questions or would like to speak with one of us to take down the contact information we have, and we'd love to continue that discussion. But I guess I don't know exactly what the average or that median number is for the volume of properties, but we really service property management companies of all sizes, users with, 3 to 10 properties and users with hundreds and thousands of properties and everywhere in between. So
Yeah, and I think we're fairly similar. I think we actually just implemented that 20 number, and we've made some exceptions to go down in the teens. But I'd say the average for us is probably somewhere around 40 to 50 for our clients. But again, we have some that are just 10 and just above that, up to north of 1,000. So really runs the gamut. And we really try to segregate at least our services on kind of servicing the unique needs of the smaller operator versus the larger operator. Usually that's by accounting system. So our larger clients are using Sage Intacct, which is a more powerful, more robust reporting platform versus say QuickBooks. So I think the average property manager in general is around 15 to 20. I know that was right during the pandemic or before the pandemic, that was the number. I don't know if that numbers went down. I haven't heard one in the last couple of years, but I'd expect that it's still probably somewhere around that 15 number. But I see we're a minute over. Thanks everybody. And
Awesome.
Yeah, we appreciate.
Thank you both, Justin and Jesse. Sorry to cut you off there. Yeah, we have a few people who are interested in speaking with us, so we will follow up with a recording of this session for everyone's convenience, and also let you know who you can contact, or you can screenshot this slide right here because these are the right people. So everyone have a great day.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Justin.
Take care.
Mary.
Cheers.